Well, guess what? It's Tuesday, and we are going to Disneyland in Anaheim, California. Oh, somebody's following me. Watch out. Watch out. Oh, they still got some, Halloween stuff.
That looks like the Buzz Lightyear thing, probably.
I think you're right. Tomorrowland. So this was my technically second time ever at Disneyland. I've never been to the one in Florida, and last time I was here, Star Tours was closed, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, so of course we immediately went there. And I tried to take pictures of some of these lit signs, which doesn't quite work. What I thought was cool is that as far as characters, they had a First Order Stormtrooper in line, yelling at people for ID and things like that. And they did talk, like Goofy and characters like that don't talk, but the Stormtroopers did. I'm assuming they had pre-recorded, lines, but it would still added to the feel of it. This was the beginning where they had R2 and 3PO, which was kind of one of my favorite parts of the ride because the animatronics on C-3PO just worked really well compared to some other animatronics because he is a robot and he was so shiny. And every now and then he'd say things and they have a little back and forth. It was hard to capture because it was intermittent, and I went on the ride 2 or 3 times, and you catch different things each time. But they also had a version of him in the ride, and again, both times that was kind of my favorite part of the ride was the animatronic C-3PO. But what I like about Disney, and other theme parks do this too, but not as well, is the environments they build on the way in, so you can see all the different astromechs, and this is stuff that's like underneath the stairs. I had to lean over to like get good pictures. It's not all in your face. Of course, there is things that are definitely designed to be in your face, like robots that talk to you and stuff like that. Like this gentleman right here, who I assume had an actor performing him.
Ready for Star Tours? Oops.
I'll do that.
What? Walking. This is not a good. I didn't do this good.
So once we got on our cool stunner shades, we moved on into the actual ride proper, went on it. It was great. And for those that don't know, they have multiple storylines, so that's why it's worth going on more than once. This is the store, I think it's called the Galactic Outpost or Trading Post, but basically it's the Star Wars store, the Star Tours store. And when I had been here last time, I was there, to be clear, I was there 5 years ago, 6 years ago, for half a day, one day while it rained, and Star Tours was closed. But this store was open. It wasn't as deluxe in Star Wars as it is now, but they did have a few things. I think I got like an Ewok plush or whatever. Didn't do the Build-A-Saber, which they had at the time. This time they Build a Droid, which I did quite a bit more. And then this is the area outside. This was all Tomorrowland, which is somewhat Star Wars now, a little bit Buzz Lightyear. It still is Space Mountain, although it's Hyperspace Mountain. And we were recommended to go on the Buzz Lightyear ride, which we did here. And it's a shooty ride. It kind of reminded me of Men in Black at Universal, if you've ever been to that. It was very kitschy. Here is the picture at the end, which I took a picture of because I didn't have to pay for. Then later found out you can get it for free by getting it emailed to you. The photo stuff, this is a Fast Pass ticket booth that looked like a Gonk Power Droid from Star Wars, which I thought was kind of cool. Again, Disney is very good at having things on theme. This is the launch bay, which was sort of like a mini Star Wars museum. I don't know if that's always set up or if it was a temporary thing. I hadn't seen it before, but again, I don't really know that much about Disney. So, but it had all kinds of props and models, and it seemed like not a ton from the actual movie. It was more things like high-end collectibles almost, and they did have a store that had like hot toys and things like that, but a lot of really good models. It kind of reminded me of, there was a museum like touring thing going around, like the Art of Star Wars or something like that was at the Science Tech Museum by my house. Kind of reminded me of that, where a few of these things might have been from the actual movie, but most of them were made to look as good as the movie, basically. But it was worth taking a look. It was, free, and I had to buy admission, but it was free once I was in there. And it just looked like a good Star Wars-y kind of museum. And within there, they had a store that sold like high-end collectibles that you could get elsewhere. There was maybe 1 or 2 Disney exclusives, nothing particularly exciting. But they also had like photo opportunities with the characters from Star Wars. Now, as I mentioned, the First Order troopers wandered around the park interacting with people, but there was Chewie and Vader and Boba Fett at least, and they rotate at different times of the day, but you actually had to wait online, and then you take a picture in there with them, which I eventually did later. Not at this time, but again, it's free, sort of. The whole picture thing is odd because some rides, they're like, give us your email and we'll send you a picture. Some rides, they're like, give us your email, we'll send you a link, look at this app, you have to pay for it, whatever. So, this is one of my favorites, me at the Cantina bar. But basically, take pictures if you have an opportunity on the wall, because you might get an actual picture. Well, I guess I shouldn't be encouraging people to do that, but they don't say not to. It's more like if you want the high quality perfect picture, you may have to pay. That was the Jarek table, of course, from the Millennium Falcon famously, but just the Star Wars universe. And once again, the whole building had then been themed to be Star Wars. They were playing Star Wars music. They had cool lighting that's sort of like hyperspace, and little alcoves just had Star Warsy looking stuff from various environments. Here I am planning the plot. I'm planning the plot. Here's an ad or something for a Treadwell droid, Ray's blaster. Q kind of made fun of me, like, why we're here just taking pictures of things that you could see elsewhere, and it's kind of true. But I'm a Star Wars jerk, and so here. And the other thing is, we were there for 3 days. If I was there for one day, I probably wouldn't have spent as much time here. And before going, we talked to people who had gone, because, like I said, I kind of had sort of never been. And Q had been to Florida a bunch of times when she was younger, but we were trying to figure out how long we actually needed, and we had answers ranging from 1 day to a week and whatever. We ended up going 3 days. I think 2 would have been okay, but 3 made it so that we didn't have to rush and we could do little side things like this without feeling like we were missing out on anything else. And I do think that while we certainly didn't see everything in the park, we got to see everything we wanted and even did 1 or 2 rides multiple times that we wanted to. I thought this was awesome. This is a life-size replica of the old 70s, 80s Darth Vader figure, even to the point where he's taller than me, as the actor would have been. And this is a really blurry picture of me with a trooper. And again, just a lot of this stuff I've seen before online. Some of it I've seen in real life, but just all together, it's just a fun. It's like a house that I want to have one day, or a wing of the house I want to have one day. And here they had another prop set up of Vader and his helmet, which may or may not have been screen used. I suspect not. And this was cool. You could put your name. There's Gazbot. That's my name in the Star Wars language, the name of which is escaping me. After our dalliance in Tomorrowland, dalliance, that's how we started today. We actually started looking at Disney proper stuff like the castle here for Sleeping Beauty. And then we actually went and did the Sleeping Beauty sort of ride, quote unquote, but it was sort of, it was like a walkthrough, and it was great because there was no real ride, no real line. And while it's not a property I am personally a particular fan of theirs, I'm definitely a weird Disney fan in that I am more a fan. Well, I guess I'm not a huge Disney fan. I'm a fan of Star Wars and Pixar and Marvel and a lot of their ancillary things. And of the movies of theirs that I like a lot, like some of my favorites are Fox and the Hound and things. I'm not a big fan of singing, so other movies, despite being well animated and interesting, I never got that into as a kid because of all the singing. And this whole area to me represented like old school Disney. It had a lot of the original properties and had Cinderella, Snow White, Peter Pan, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, all that kind of stuff. And it definitely seemed like the older rides that had been there a while. The whole area was set up to look like an old-fashioned kind of what you'd think of in a Disney Village movie sort of thing. And it was great, but at the same time, if that is all the park was, one day would have been enough. I will say I very much enjoyed Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Again, it kind of had a lot of like blacklight neon paint stuff, but it was just crazy. I won't say too much about it, but it's worth going on. This was the Matterhorn, which also was much better than I thought it would be, surprisingly. It was a good roller coaster, didn't make me sick, didn't have a lot of loops, but it also had some fun stuff other than just being a roller coaster I didn't expect. And from here, we headed over to, I want to say Toontown. I forget what it was. I want to say Toontown, but it was like the younger kid area, but they had this Roger Rabbit fountain and a Roger Rabbit ride, which really surprised me. Like, because I didn't think it was a Disney property, and I mean, I guess it had a lot of Disney characters in it, but also that it just had been so long. I'm like, does anybody care about Roger Rabbit anymore? But I did, so we went on. Once again, it was a very sort of immersive line. Once you got inside the building, you still had to wait a while, but as you went through, there were doors that you could knock on. And there was Jessica Rabbit's silhouette, and she's talking to her agent, and there was the weasels telling jokes, and the whole thing just felt very much like sets that they would have filmed the movie on, and it was pretty cool. Weird lighting, etc. The only bummer is that there was a delay, and they're like, oh, it's going to be a 10-minute delay if you want to stay online, and then they said that like 3 or 4 times, so we ended up sort of staying in one hot, dark place in the line for like 40 minutes without moving. Also, this was weird. They had like the dip machine, and on the bottom you could barely see it, but there was tons of money, like coins, even some dollars, and I couldn't quite figure it out because it seemed like, oh, are people just throwing it because they're bored, or is it supposed to be a wishing well? And I thought maybe it's part of the set, but why? But then there were dollars, so I didn't quite get that. And the other thing is, while we had a delay on this line in particular, it was still less than an hour. And most of the lines were less than an hour. Most were closer to a half hour. 1 or 2 of the more popular rides at peak hours were a little bit longer, but again, all less than an hour. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that we went on weekdays the day after Halloween. So we missed the Halloween rush, and we didn't have to deal with summer crowds or weekend crowds or anything like that. And now we get into nighttime where Tomorrowland just looked awesome. And that structure I just showed kind of reminded me of Aughra's thing from The Dark Crystal, if you remember that movie. And they had all these nighttime ravey things, and I don't know, just had a very celebratory vibe. So, I used to work at Six Flags, and it had a similar thing, but everything was just better and nicer and more deluxe, and all the employees were friendlier, and everything was cleaner, and it was just like I could see why it has the reputation of being like the best because having been to a lot of theme parks and fairs and etc., it was the best. This is downtown Disney, by the way. They had a live band playing, a bunch of older people playing, and it was awesome because it was I don't know, it was awesome. Disney's good, guys. You should go to Disney. And then we had dinner at the Rainforest Cafe, which is something that we have near us, so it wasn't that exotic. But I don't know, a lot of the eating downtown, like in the park, is very expensive and not great. This is my bling. I got a BB-8 Star Wars thing, which was actually left over from a previous celebration, so I was happy to be able to get that. And again, here's the Rainforest Cafe. It was one of the more deluxe Rainforest Cafes I've been in, kind of reminded me of the one in Las Vegas. But honestly, for the price and the food, it's as good or better as anything you could get in Disney.
Every time I come here, I wonder what Atlas has to do with the rainforest. But I don't care because I love it.
The other good thing is that downtown Disney is open later than the park itself, so that if you want to keep hanging out and having some fun, you could do it there, like and eat, for example, instead of wasting your time in the park. And they have a big deluxe Lego store, which is what I'm showing you here. I don't collect Legos, but I think they're cool. But I always love how the bigger stores have all these like sculptures. And here, of course, they were all on theme with having Aladdin and Toy Story. And of course, now because they own Marvel, they had a Hulk. And this Hulk was very small, as you could see. No, that's not true. He was a big man. He was he wasn't quite life-size, but you could see he made me scream. I don't know who this woman was, but she angered me, so I wore my R2-D2 mouse hat and glowered at her.
Day 2 begins!
An adventure awaits. A Disney California adventure.
Yeah, that's right. For day 2, we're doing California Adventure. Maybe not the whole day. Who knows? I can't see because I lost my sunglasses. Nah.
What? A trolley? Right in the middle of everything? Madness! Or magic, the magic of Disney. And here's a statue of Walt himself with the character of Mickey, who he may or may not have created.
I'm here at the Rocky Springs up in the Alpine Mountains. And as you can see, there's bears oh.
So our first stop in California Adventure was the town of Cars. I forget what it's called. The Cars town. Radiator Springs, I guess. And I am not a fan of Cars. I love Pixar. Cars is my least favorite movie. And everybody told me to go there, and I was like, I guess, And I will say the downtown is great. It's, again, that super immersive. You feel like you're in Cars, but not just for the ride, but the whole area and all the little cafes and, everything. Now, this is the line for Radiator Springs, which is the actual ride, and they had these bottles that gave light, and this was great. It felt like being on the back lot of a movie set. A lot of it had that feeling. But you can see here, like, everywhere you looked, once you got far enough in, just looked like you were out in the middle of, like, the Colorado Rockies or something, which, of course, Radiator Springs. That's the actual ride that we will be on. And that was Lightning McQueen, but they had various characters from the movie.
Bastard McQueen! Hey, race, everybody! I've raced all over the world.
And so, yeah, they had these interesting animatronics, which they had at Buzz Lightyear too, where it's a mix of animatronic and, like, I don't know, rear screen, projected LED eyes and stuff. Like, it was very cool. And then the ride itself was awesome as well. And they had Cars characters, just like they did with Goofy or whatever else. Kind of like the Star Wars ones. They were animated and they had voice lines, and like a lot of them, so it seemed like they were really talking to the kids or whoever was there. And they really drove around town, so it was cool, but also a little bizarrely surreal to see Lightning McQueen actually driving down the street. And this was a little baby tractor that I thought was adorable, so I took pictures with him. I adopted him and brought him home, and his name is Tracky. Next stop was the Midway Pier area, and you can see the giant Ferris wheel of Mickey, which again seems to me very iconic and old school. I could be wrong about that. I don't know how old it is, but I feel like that's one of those things that's been there for a while. And if not, they made it look like it is. And the main reason we went over here was because there was a Toy Story shooting game, not to be confused with the Buzz Lightyear one we already did. In terms of flair, this one was like Midway Circus Games. I took pictures of these control panels just because I thought they looked cool, maybe as reference in the future for a comic, maybe not, but they just had this sort of old school, almost 70s look to them with big chunky buttons, which has nothing to do with Disney, but I enjoy. But anyway, this game I enjoyed more. Q enjoyed the Buzz Lightyear one more, and I do think the aesthetic of the Buzz Lightyear one was more fun with the sci-fi and stuff. However, this one I felt like there was actually accuracy, and it was kind of 3D, and like the game worked better. The other one was like a better ride, but the game game on this one worked better. Up next, well, we were heading out, but we went through this area, which is another little kids area, but it was based on Bug's Life, which was an early Pixar movie, which I haven't seen in a while, but I remember liking quite a bit. And it was cool because it was, the whole thing is from the perspective of a small bug, so, they had Christmas decorations, but they were gigantic because you're a little bug, and, so we didn't go on any rides, and we basically just walked through. Actually, on the other side, oh, here you can see they had, like, Chinese takeout containers as, like, the ride. And on the other side, they had Tower of Terror, which, again, was one of the longer waits, which was about an hour, so not too bad. I was dying of thirst, and they had a vendor online, and I was like, yes, but they only took cash. So I was like, no. And you can see this is all done as a, like, Twilight Zone themed thing. And, again, super immersive, very cool. You get through the sort of intro and a little movie about why it's haunted, and then you go downstairs to the basement, and like, oh, that looks like a face. And they're like, well, you have to take this elevator, which I hope is not haunted. And of course, it turns out to be haunted. Spoilers. Here again is a picture I took, and this is one that I'm glad I did because it turned out I would have had to pay to get the good. For those that don't know, Tower of Terror will be closing to be reopened, rebranded as Guardians of the Galaxy, which I thought was kind of a bad choice, but it turns out it wasn't a Disney decision. They lost the license. So to keep the ride, the rebranding of Guardians, and I do like Guardians, so that's fine. Speaking of Guardians and Marvel, this is the actual Doctor Strange outfit worn by Mr. Benedict Cumberbatch, and he was in it, and so if you smell it, it smells like him, and if you scrape it for DNA, you can clone a baby of him. But I just thought it was cool. This was they had like a 10-minute preview with like 4D, and again, it was free, and so we checked it out. And I liked looking at the costume up close because you see all the texture and detail that you normally see. I also normally don't like seeing things like this because it's like big chunks of the movie that I haven't seen yet, and it's kind of spoilery. But I wanted to experience the 4D aspect of it, which was not that impressive. It was basically 3D, and they blew some wind, and they had some like light on the sides, and I enjoyed it, but the spoiler was not worth the 4D. Yeah. Now, while I said I'm not a gigantic fan of the traditional Disney properties, and I wasn't particularly interested in getting a picture with Mickey or Goofy, both because they're not my favorite characters, but also because I'm an adult, and there's a certain level of awkwardness to it, even for a big kid like me, when I'm in line with kids and stuff, But I loved Zootopia. I was a big fan of Zootopia, which is a Disney property, even though it's not in that like normal universe. And I saw that they were going to have Officer Hop, and I was like, hey, maybe if we see her, I'll get it. And then, as luck would have it, right next to the Doctor Strange thing, they had Hop and Foxman, whose name is actually Nick Wilde, which I just had to look up, which is funny because for some reason I can never remember his name, and online I found the same was true of kids and parents. Everyone remembered Judy Hop. Nobody could remember his name, so I don't know. Branding, may give him a better name. But I was happy to get this picture, and going again with like the super customer service and stuff, and I've seen, and performance level too, because having worked at Six Flags, some 16-year-old in a Bugs Bunny costume kind of goes out there, farts around for 10 minutes, and then comes back and hates his life. But here, I continually saw, like Goofy, done, talking to people, done taking pictures, no one looking at him, walking back into the room, like, pretending to bump his head, and, like, still acting, even when he's not technically, like, being perceived. Like, I happen to catch him, but, like, it's that level of detail. And similarly, I loved being online for this picture because the two of them kept acting, and they weren't speaking because, again, they're the type of characters that don't, they can't speak, but they were pantomiming and they were goofing around. And at one point, there was two people and somebody put up bunny ears behind the head, and she's like, oh, I don't want bunny ears. And Hop grabbed her ears, and Nick pointed, and she's like, oh, and she left. It was like a whole little skit. It was super great and weirdly one of the funnest things I did. Decided to get some Disney food. They had a sort of veggie hot dog thing, and it was like shiitake mushrooms and these weird banana chip things. It was disgusting. I hated it, and I threw most of it away. Oswald, he is the original proto-Disney character. I don't know a ton about, but I haven't seen him a lot. I just know his historical significance. And they had a little gas station set up for him, and they had this cool gas station shirt, which was my major souvenir, was this Oswald shirt, because it's the kind of shirt I would wear anyway, and it's, the punk rock Mickey. And that was my lovely dance. This is crazy Matrix locker world, where I found a place where you could actually store things. You kind of get a number. It's a locker, but it was just weird. And here we are, Frontierland. This again reminded me of more old school Disney kind of stuff that like my dad would have talked about when he went a million years ago. And we didn't spend a lot of time in these saloony areas. Like they had like a shooting gallery, like you'd see at any kind of boardwalk and things like that. We did, however, go on Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, this is one of the few rides I had been on before we were here years back, and I loved it. It definitely, like, that was the thing that impressed me and let me know that Disney was kind of above the average, theme park. And it's long, but the line is not very long. And that was my experience last time as well. and it's indoors, and they have a fake sky, and it's dark, and animatronics. Some of them are fantastic, some of them are mediocre. I mean, it's been there forever, but it is absolutely worth seeing. It was difficult to take pictures and video because it's so dark, so I'm just kind of talking, like, you know, you can see there's fake fire, there's cannon fire. Like, I imagine it's the same in Florida, although I don't know because I haven't been there, but I can see why it's persisted so long. I can see why it's so popular. I can see why it even got a movie, even though the movie doesn't really have much to do with the ride. Although retroactively, they have put in a Johnny Depp, Captain Jack Sparrow, 2 or 3 areas where he has been put back in.
I'm in Frontierland, and here's just a shot of me talking because I mostly haven't had time to do things like this. But this proves I'm in Disney.
Hey, look at that. Adventureland. Totally different than Frontierland. Actually, very similar. I guess this is more like jungly as opposed to westerny. And this is the Indiana Jones ride line. Now, last time I went, I had got a fast pass for Indiana Jones and didn't get to go on it. So I was pretty bummed out. So this, like Star Tours, was another one that was high on my list, both because I'm a fan of the material and because I didn't get to go last time.
Andy told me to meet him up here, but I don't know, this place looks pretty dangerous. I mean, there's skulls on spikes. That's not the kind of thing you want to see, right? I don't know. Oh. This is pretty awesome, actually.
And again, they had, a lot of production value on the line and mostly inside and make you feel like you're in this temple. And then before you get on the ride, there's a little movie that actually has new footage from John Rhys Davies, who plays Sala in the movies. And it kind of sets up why you're there and what you're doing. And it's that extra mile. It actually, again, reminded me of Universal Studios a bit in that way. Up next, we are heading to the Haunted Mansion, which, because it was just after Halloween, had the Nightmare Before Christmas theme, which was pretty cool. Now, I haven't been to the standard vanilla Haunted Mansion, so I don't know all the differences. I mean, obviously, if Jack Skellington's face is thrown on something, I know that's not normally there, but, there was also Christmassy stuff, which was cool, and Halloween-y stuff, and it was a good ride. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Again, the line was fun, because outside it looks like a real mansion. It didn't look like just a front. It looked like a big house, because it is a 3-dimensional thing with, different levels that you end up going through on the indoor, for lack of a better term, roller coaster, although it's, much more about what you're seeing than the actual ride. But it gives you something to do when you're waiting online, when there's things to take pictures of. And then this is the beginning inside, and there was so much going on. I could barely capture it all. And there was a weird part where it kind of stopped in the middle, I guess because one of the cars in front of us were delayed. So I got a lot of good pictures in this particular area because of it. And yeah, if you're a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, you pretty much have to do this. Outside, they had a little gift shop, and I got these fingerless gloves for Jack Skellington's Haunted Nightmare, or whatever it was called, which I still use, which I like quite a bit. And I've used them at home even though it's not in Disney. And this is the little downtown. I just loved how everything lit up at night. I'm a big sucker for Christmas lights or boardwalk lights or anything that is in that milieu. And that's what you get a lot at Disney. You can see the castle from far away lit up, which is really nice. And then just more, I don't know what you call those, Edison lights or gas lamps or something. And we headed back to Tomorrowland, which is, probably my favorite area. And at night, it was so different and lit up great. And it had that same, hey, everything's lit up, but very, spacey, for lack of a better term, very sci-fi, a lot of purple, a lot of blue, as you can see. And this is the back area of Hyperspace Mountain, which I was trying to get these light-up Mickey Mouse Star Wars hat ears that I kept seeing, but like my little BB-8, they were from a previous time and they were out of stock. And even though we were there for 3 days, I could never get them, which was This was at a Starbucks on Main Street. We were getting ice cream, I think, and the line was so long, so I went to go get a Starbucks, and it was decked out so it didn't even look like a Starbucks, which was cool, and it had this old-fashioned fake phone, which I picked up to goof around and take some pictures with. And there was a conversation on the other line, which is great. And this is like the secrets of Disney, which I didn't look into too much. I know people that go there all the time, find all these little hidden things. And I thought about doing it, but I wanted to be surprised. And there I was. I picked it up, and it was like an old-fashioned, oh, hey, Mildred, what are you doing? And then it's like, oh, I think somebody might be listening. Well, what kind of a loser listens to other people's conversations? And it was great. And similarly, when I was by the lockers, I ended up hearing something. Thus, we closed out day 2 and headed back to the Castle Inn & Suites, which is not an official Disney hotel, but it certainly looks like one, and we were within walking distance, so it worked for us.
Thursday, day 3, the final day of Disney. I got these new sunglasses, my sunglasses, gone missing. Found these. I didn't want to buy an expensive pair of sunglasses. I wanted to buy a cheap pair or a cool pair, and these were midway. They were $12, and they're ugly cool. Anyway, on to the show. This is it. That's It's Warner Brothers.
Starting the day with another trolley in Disney Prime this time. And you could see that I quickly used FastPass. We wanted to go on Hyperspace Mountain, so I used the Power Droid. And Hyperspace Mountain is basically Space Mountain, which has been rebranded as Star Wars. And this is the front of that Galactic Outpost trading store. I just didn't take a picture before of the R2 and 3PO within it. And what did we do next? Well, we went on Star Tours for the second time. As I said, we went on it more than once because it's sort of a mix and match of you go to different locations and destinations.
Do I have the best job or what? If someone
Remember, you must return your glasses after your flight.
And we solicited advice from people on our third day of things that we might have missed that we hadn't seen. So we went back to the Fairyland? I don't remember what this was called. The main land. There's a Dumbo one. And it was recommended that we went to Snow White's castle. I think it was called like Haunted Castle or something like that, which isn't something I would have done otherwise, but it was recommended, so we checked it out. Scary Adventures, there it is. And it was pretty cool. Again, it was very old school Disney, and it was worth checking out on the third day. Then we went to this area, which was basically the mini Hall of Presidents to see this Abraham Lincoln speech, but outside of it had a bunch of train stuff and Disney history, and was sort of like a mini museum. And it also had a lot of cool artwork, including stuff from Gargoyles, which is a show I liked. Again, talking about like what I like Disney that is, you know, like officially Disney, I was much more a fan of the TV shows than the movies, like DuckTales, Gargoyles, Darkwing Duck, that kind of thing. That's my friend Nick Bertinazzi. And they had a lot of cool art. This is from the Haunted Mansion. That's a cool looking character. I don't know if there was ever an animation of it, but he looked really familiar to me, even though I had never been on the ride. That was a facsimile of the studio that someone might have drawn at. There's more Oswald. Again, just a lot of cool stuff to look at. Pirates art. Very diverse styles, even though it's all Disney. This Stitch Space Mountain didn't exist where we were, but it had cool artwork. I imagine maybe that's in Florida. Again, a drawing animation table, which is not that different from what I used when I was at school. And, you know, I didn't buy anything. It was all very expensive. I didn't notice them having prints or posters or cheaper versions. They may have, but most of it was very expensive. Now, this was like sort of the mini Hall of Presidents thing, which had just Lincoln. It was a bit of a wait, and then there was like a huge preamble with like a stupid movie that was not that amazing. But once we got into it, it was a pretty amazing animatronic, and I imagine they must have updated it since, you know, when it was created back in the day. If not, it's mind-blowing genius. But even by today's standards, it was pretty entertaining and worth watching. And again, it's not like there's an extra charge. And here's the parade, which I think have somewhat often. We only really caught it once. We were busy running around getting online and stuff. I'm not a big parade fan, but they had some neat stuff, and so I filmed it forever. And once again, I found myself back at the Galactic Trading Post taking some pictures. There's a Build-A-Droid. Every day we went there, we kept going back and making Build-A-Droid because they had unique pieces, and it was just fun. And here's the Stormtroopers again. They I don't know if this was one of their friends or this is just what they do, but they were like, "Where's your ID? You're coming with us." And they actually took this woman away. So I don't know if she gets a prize. I don't know what happens if she knew this was happening, but she went along, and I was sad they did not pick me because I am a child. This is Hyperspace Mountain, and the inside, again, just a cool setup. Here is a picture of us that we did not buy, and I got sick on it. I didn't puke or anything, but the motion made me very sick, and there's me with some droids. I would not have gone on it if I wasn't a Star Wars fan and I wanted to see the new Star Wars stuff they added, but I don't think I'll ever go on it again because it made me kind of sick, and then I was fine after like an hour, but every ride I went on the rest of the day I got sick again. This is the area I was talking about before. Inside the sort of Star Wars museum area, they had a Chewbacca and a Darth Vader ready to be taking pictures with. So I chose Darth Vader because they had seen the pictures of the Chewbacca suit and it didn't look as impressive to me. And again, it was just like, you know, a 20-minute wait, and you get in there, and it was like set up to be as though you're walking into a Darth Vader chamber. It felt like, oh, well, now I'm in a Star Wars ship. I'm on the Death Star or something. Red lights and everything. And once again, it was very worth it because it wasn't just, hey, let's get a picture. There was like overdub of I guess James Earl Jones, but I don't know. And he's talking to me, and he's yelling at me, and he's questioning me, and I'm making this horrible, ugly face. I'm like, and they charge you for the official pictures, but you're able to give your camera to someone that works there, and they take pictures. And I wish I had done a better job, but I was so interested in the little play act we were in and how I was a rebel spy and he was doing a good job that I wasn't being very conscious of the photos. I was just having fun. And if I had the time, I would have gone back and done Chewie. And again, I'd recommend it for anyone because it's weird to say, but like getting the pictures is a lot of fun. This was a popcorn holder, a First Order TIE Fighter, which I got mainly because I wanted the toy of it. And I think, again, it was like a holdover from a previous celebration. This was outside of a ride, which I'm forgetting the name of now, but it was, that was Splash Mountain, which was closed. And that's the Haunted Mansion during the day. But the other ride, which we went on next, here it is. It's like Old Creek Mill, whatever. It's a roller coaster, and it doesn't have any loops, and it's exactly the kind I want. And again, it had this cool environment. But because I had gotten sick on Hyperspace Mountain, I got sick on this again, and there you see other people on the end of it. Again, not to the point where I puke, but I often get motion sickness where like I almost wish I could puke so I'd feel better. And it was cool because by the time we got off, it was nighttime, and then there's me with my BB-8 blasting again. I got a lot of compliments on that. I actually wore it to Rogue One, and a lot of people were asking me where I got it. So I'm a super cool Star Wars man. And more nighttime lights at Frontierland where I kept going back. And this was our third and final trip to Star Tours. We came around the back. Again, me taking pictures of what I think are cool-looking control panels. And then the outside lights, which I was enamored with continuously. Something else I didn't talk about too much was the Path of the Jedi. There were 2 Star Wars things I didn't do. One was Path of the Jedi, which was sort of a condensed. They took the 6 original movies and condensed them down to like 15, 20 minutes or something. And it had that 4D effect again. But I've seen all those movies so many times, and I was not impressed with the Doctor Strange 4D, so I skipped it. And then there was also one where you're like a training Padawan thing, which I was going to do, but it was only for little kids. So I didn't. The other thing worth mentioning just about Disney in general is the Fast Pass system is very good. And now I haven't been to another theme park in a couple of years, so maybe this has been instituted elsewhere, but you can only get one every half hour or hour, I think, but it's still, you get your time, and you're still going to have to wait online, but it cuts it down so much. What you're seeing here is actually the storefront windows they had on the downtown, like on your way out, the stores, again, that are open late. We got some food, and we were doing some last-minute souvenir shopping. And they had many windows set. So, for example, here's Toy Story, and it had the kids' hands coming in and play. They get an idea of scale with me. But then, like, other characters would come in on tracks, and, like, they reenacted, like, bank robberies for Toy Story or whatever. And they came out and danced here. And other ones were just as good or better. And, yeah, I spent a lot of time kind of, like, taking forever to get out of the park when we were sort of done, just because I wanted to capture. And I didn't capture all of them. There were windows that I barely looked at, and then there are some that I just couldn't wait around for the things to animate in time. And, here's Peter Pan, which, again, that ride, I didn't say this before, that ride disappointed me, but this little diorama was amazing. And as you can see, the whole building spins and transforms so that you see the inside bedroom scene of when, like, Peter is taking the kids out. And it's a little dark, but you get the idea. And then, when it lights up, you can see it okay. That's impressive. I'm not going to lie. That is very impressive. And many of them had things equally as impressive. But I just, time and I just couldn't capture it all. Also, on the way out, as we continued, I started taking pictures of the posters that they have for the rides, which surprisingly they didn't sell, because I could see, Star Wars and Indiana Jones, I might have bought one or both, and, I'm sure there's fans of all the different rides they have, like even just the regular, Space Mountain or Haunted Mansion or anything, so it was odd. It seemed like a missed opportunity considering how much merchandising they do that they didn't utilize that.
Well, it's Friday morning, and we bid werewolf. We bid farewell to the Castle Inn. It looks nice. It was very nice from the front at night, despite having unusually uncomfortable beds and pillows. We still salute you, Castle Inn.
So while we were done and heading home, we did stop by Downtown Disney one last time, because you can go there without actually having tickets to the park, which is a nice little tip. And mainly to do some last-minute souvenir shopping, because they had like Disney stores that are not in Disney that have a lot of the same merchandise outside here. They have this weird ESPN zone, which, well, I guess it's not that weird. It's just weird. I don't do sports. Why would they have this? I didn't need it. And yeah, it's a fun little downtown. And I guess people that are local just treat it like a mini mall, but it's super deluxe, if that's all they're looking at it as. And so here's some pictures from one of the main Disney stores to give you an idea. We went in lots of these, but this is just sort of like a quick peek at the type of merchandise they have and my lovely gams that I'm showing off to myself. This I thought was weird. They had a line of collectible, these are like shot glass or something, of like garbage cans. Now they had decorative garbage cans in there, but are people collecting miniature decorative garbage cans from Disney? I mean, I guess people collect anything, and I collect a lot of weird stuff too. It just seemed like, of all the things, I don't know. And they had a lot of artwork and sculpture and like high-end collectible stuff. This Mickey as Indiana Jones I thought about buying. I saw it in the park, and I saw it here. I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, because I enjoyed the ride. I like Indiana Jones, but I'm not a big Mickey fan. And it would have been an impulse, like, I'm here, I better get a souvenir. But I got plenty of souvenirs. I got the droids, I got my Oswald shirt, I got a mug, and that would have been an impulse buy. This was a cool little holographic scene that they had a few of. I didn't get any, but they were worth checking out. And then you can just see, again, the store is just branded, has artwork on the top, floor to ceiling. The whole thing looks nice. And again, it's just that Disney touch, which, you know, now that I'm talking about it, kind of reminds me, in a way, a lot of the things in Japan were just sort of like super customer service, taking super pride in every little detail. And this is the downtown where they had some, it was sort of like a Build-A-Bear, but it was like a Build-A race car. On the way back home, we stopped to get lunch with our buddy Pete, which was cool, fuel up with some coffee, and it was nice to break up the trip and get another little visit, but of course it did make us get home that much later. That sky looked awesome, and later in the day, that's a picture of a Mach 1 I took from my mother. I didn't mean to leave in here, but now you see it too. The sky became even more awesome. And it was a long ride home, but it was a great trip, and I do recommend Disneyland, and that'll close it out. Thanks for watching. I'm Gazbot. I have other videos about art and toys and things. This is a bit of an anomaly, although I do often talk about when I travel to do conventions and sell my art. And I did have a series on Japan, which I have not finished, but will one day. So thanks again for watching. Click like, subscribe, all that gibbers.